and welcome to Jesus.Plus.Life. We love being a part of your day and to bring you some joy through life-giving conversations. Today we're going to watch part 2 of an episode we started last week. Sonny and Jenene Calloway continue the conversation on diversity and inclusion. These ladies are going to go deep, and I can't wait for you to hear what they have to say. There is still time to share this conversation with a friend, so hit that share button as we get started in this week's conversation.
Okay, so you say men are the biggest, totally agree, biggest advocate. If Sean just spoke somewhere, he's like, they're going to have you come speak. I'm like, why? He's like, because I told him about you. That's how I've been pushed forward, is Sean pushing me forward.
Absolutely.
Never has it been because of me.
Absolutely.
So yes. So what would you say from the diversity, around race? Would you say the same is true, that it takes someone who is not African American to also go alongside and help? And how would that look?
Absolutely.
Like, I'm asking friend to friend, how does Sonny help Jenene and everybody that you have influenced?
Absolutely. I love this question. So as I think about myself, African American woman, and as I sought out coaches, mentors for me over my career, yes, I have mentors and coaches that are African American, but I also have some that are white. I have a lot of them that are men. Some of my best mentors were men. So it's not about seeking people that only look like you. It's seeking people that have different perspectives and different experiences that can pour into you. And so, I have approached even others. A lot of times when I'm looking to learn something about a new topic or a new space, I'll approach someone and say, hey, are you interested in maybe doing maybe a reverse mentoring relationship? No one has ever told me no to that.
Really?
Because it's like, wow, that would be cool. I can learn a lot about you, your experiences and perspectives, and then the same. And so then over time, those individuals become advocates of you. They become allies for you to help move forward different ideas that you have about situations. So I think that same point around women needing men to help. They don't need them, but it's not about need or not need. It should be part of the conversation. And so as you advance people of color, underrepresented groups, those that are living in poverty, those with disabilities, those that are just living in really, really bad situations, we need to all wrap our arms around each other. It's not about because you aren't it, you can't be. And there's this phrase, and you and I, Sonny, we talked about this because this gets a little, when it comes to faith and lifestyle, and how do you have that conversation around being a Christian and the type of things you support and speak up about, and how do you navigate through that space? And I think that's the $1 million question, right? And how I've been able to reconcile it really is saying you don't have to be one of to stand with, right?
I love that.
Like, you don't have to be one of to stand with. So, you don't have to have breast cancer to participate in a breast cancer walk at its simplest form. But then, it's almost like God, if we were to say, I don't hang out with Christians, he would say, excuse me? Huh? What are you doing? Right? It's not about going to serve only like-minded people, right? It's about supporting people where they are and bring them closer to Jesus, right? But I'm just a big advocate of, you don't have to be one of to stand with, and that's the same for men and women and the majority as it pertains to underrepresented groups.
And I think this comes down to all human beings are worthy of love and acceptance. Period. That's at a human level. That's not at a belief level. That's not at a what we look like, what we do, what we talk about. Human beings were created by one creator. Therefore, they're worthy of love.
It's not about seeking people who look like you. It's about approaching and learning from people who have different perspectives and experiences that you can learn from. What a great way to approach learning something new, gaining new insight, and adding to your circle of advocates. Jenene said this: "You don't have to be one of to stand with." We aren't here to serve only like-minded people as Jesus people. We are here to meet people where they are at and show them what Jesus looks like. There's so much more in this conversation, so keep watching as we jump right back into it, and Sonny asked Jenene another question.
I'm going to ask you a question. I'll tell you the thing that I think is one of the reasons that I think racism is still an issue, or classism, or ageism, or any of the isms. And I think it's that we still think it's funny to laugh and make jokes about things that we, whatever group we're with, whether that's the majority or just people that we're friends with, that anything we don't understand, we can joke about it. And everybody gets it in the room because we all think the same way, and oh, that's so funny. You know, like, oh, over in that country they do that, and we stereotype, and it can get a laugh.
Sure.
And then our kids hear it. And then our kids think it's okay to say, well, this group of people, this is what they always do for a living. This group of people, this is what they always do or eat. And I think that is part of the problem of not moving forward. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's yes, it's part of the problem. I think ignorance, right? What we don't know what we don't know. And you know, a lot of the isms, racism, ageism, sexism, all the isms, I mean, they come from somewhere. And I mean, we all know that children, they're not born with hate, right? It's something that's learned over time. And so it's about it's really about raising children to love everyone.
Yeah.
And then as an adult, it's even harder to love people because they may not have been nice to you, or they don't really provide you anything, but yet you're still supposed to love them. So I've always tried to wrap my mind around, and still, by the way, can't, this idea that, you know, people say they are Christians, they love the Lord, but when it comes to a certain group of people, they treat them different. Almost like there's this exception that happens because they are X, and the Bible says you shouldn't X, you know, so we think of all the sins, right? So it's like sin 1, 7, and 12. Like, I don't really mess with 1, 7, and 12. And God's like, no, you know, no sin is greater than the other. He still expects us to love people where they are. And so I'm just amazed by that. I mean, I think of some of the most racist things I've heard and seen and experienced, but have been from people that claim to be, right, the most devout Christians you can meet. And so I've always tried to like reconcile that. And it's one of those things like, man, you're making us look bad, right? Like that's not what the Bible,
not Christian,
right? That's not what the Bible tells us to do. You're not, this isn't. The Bible says that we're supposed to love, and we don't get to judge that behavior.
Right.
We can disciple, minister, help deliver, but we're not supposed to judge and not like the individual.
Well, I love that Jesus.Plus.Life, we always point back to the Bible. And I will tell you, as I study more and more Paul, and that he went from persecuting Christians to saying, wait, Gentile, well, he was persecuting believing Jews and and Gentiles, and then he's the one going around saying Jews and Gentiles. In some ways I go, this has been a battle since the beginning, because you did go and you murdered everybody in a city because they were from that tribe. You murdered every kind of that person because they were different. You didn't intermarry. You couldn't, like, you're uncircumcised, then we can't love you. In fact, you're going to hell and we're going to kill you. And so that's not very hopeful. I'm sure it's like, well,
No, I'm
like
following.
that is the Bible. And it was the fight of the disciples to say, see what Jesus did? He said, yes, first to the Jew who believes, and then to the Gentile. It's all people. But that was the battle they were fighting. People felt that the other people group were scum, that they were worthless. Yet they were the ones saying, we're following Moses and his laws because we love God. Like, they were messed up. And it's like we're messed up in our own way to think that because they all look alike or all old people do this, this, and this, that they're scum. And we may not say that outright, but there's this like, ugh. And I think we have to catch ourselves. We have to catch ourselves when I'm driving around somebody going slow and I look over and go, oh, they're old. Like, that comes out of me. And I love Jesus and I'm better than that. It's that, that thought will come. It's not okay. Because you know what? I'm going to be that old person driving slow. Like, that's the reality. Like, what we point out is the thing that we're going to be to someone else.
Absolutely.
So it's the plank, the plank in your own eye when you're pointing out the splinter. All of these things have to do with the isms as well.
Absolutely.
It's a biblical mandate.
Absolutely.
Have you ever experienced some sort of bias in your life? It's hurtful and demeaning. We then have to fight against our own flesh to not be retaliatory and bias ourselves. It is a constant battle to be more like Jesus and to love everyone. We can never do it in our own strength, but only in His. There's still more to this conversation, so let's keep watching now.
So I'm thinking about Life Church, right? And you and I, we've come in and out of this conversation. And, as the church has grown, and I feel fortunate to have grown with the church. Like, I was at the original building. So my perspective is slightly different. Like, I don't feel like it's too big because I kind of feel like I know a lot of people. So it's like, hey, I haven't seen you for a while. So, however, I think it would have been more of a challenge to start today without getting involved in life groups and things like that. So as we have grown, we have brought on more leaders, we have created more ministries and more opportunities for people that are in the church. And so knowing that the leaders and people that we tap on the shoulder to help us run the operations change as we grow, what type of things do you, Pastor Sean, do to ensure that they're inclusive in how they serve people that walk in the door?
Well, we definitely put it in the hands of people to choose if they want to serve, when they want to serve, and where. So we're a little different, that we're not a church that taps someone and say, I need you over here in kids. Or we don't do like a ministry fair where we're like, these places are looking and we're going to pull you in. We go, it's your time. Now, what I would say, and you have encouraged me, that people of a minority, they need more of a nudge than it's for everybody, because a minority group doesn't hear it's for them. When we say it's for everybody, it can be that that fear or their past experience to go, but you don't mean me, you mean everyone, that's the majority. And so I think we have to, I know that we have pushed forward people of different races and backgrounds to go faster into leadership than maybe we would for someone who's white. Now, call that right or wrong, but we see the value in that. But if we elevate them quicker than standard, look at all the people that will go, that person looks like me, I get that person, I'll get on their team. So we've done that in our creative department. We're like, make him the head of that area, like make him the lead. Has he done the normal, like we have everybody go through, like, you served for this long and you've been in the church this long. We're like, this is too important. Because I think that we have to, and you've helped us to look at that. Because we're not going to force anybody to be on the worship team or be on the ushers. But our system is, it's on your own time. But do we need to give some nudges to certain people? Probably.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the nudge is not that they don't want to do it. But I go back to this idea of people, they aspire and are more likely to raise their hand and involve themselves when they see people who look like them or have similar experiences as them, people that they can relate to. And so relate to could be I think I would have had the same conversation with you if, 90% of our church were, involved people that were 60 and over. I would say, Sonny, we need to make sure that we are being inclusive of different age groups as well, because we want those individuals that are 60 plus to feel included, and our entire leadership team is less than 30 years old. And so I think just constantly looking at that and being intentional about the makeup, that you want your leadership team and those that are influencing the decisions that get made to represent the group in which it impacts.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
For sure. And one of the ways, Sean's best friend, Alan Griffin, he's on our board. He's a black man. We have him preach more than anybody else. Of course, he's Sean's best friend, so he just wants him to. But there's a value in that. Sure. There's such a value in that he's a board member from another city, so how is anybody going to see that he's involved? Same thing, we have a guy on the worship team, George Colts. He's Sean's favorite little friend. He is an older guy. He has all white hair. When we were small and we had a small little worship team, and then the team grew, our worship leads and our creative team were determined to say, don't ever let George feel like, because yes, we're growing as a young church, a lot of young, cool people on the platform. George is super important. One, he's got a great voice. Let's not deny that. But also, George is important because he represents a crew that is not on the guitar and won't be on the drums. And it is being teachable enough to go, where is our blind spot? I think that, for whoever's watching or listening and they work in a certain area or they're involved in any organization, if they have the leadership authority, they should find someone to help them see the blind spots.
Absolutely.
Becky is on our staff, and Becky and Ruben, they were our Latino pastors, and she would be one of our full-time staff members. We have more that are not just white people. But we've had to go to Becky and say, Becky, talk to us, because we have to be, it's not just that I'm humble. I need to not be so insecure that I feel like, will I ask the question and look dumb? Will I offend Becky? I have to have enough relationship to go, Jenene, I might ask you a question. You go, Sonny, that's kind of really stupid and callous. You should not ever say that again to anybody. But to be secure enough as a leader to go, tell me.
Absolutely.
Because I might say something really dumb. And help me to not do that and hurt somebody down the road. Absolutely.
And that's where those reverse mentoring relationships come in to say, hey, I get it even, in my workspace where I have a male leader that comes to me and wants to make a decision for an all-female team. And he's like, how do you think this would be perceived? And then at that point I can coach and say, this is something I think you should consider. And his response is, I didn't think about that. And then sometimes it's all about being, you can call it culturally competent, right? In that at some point, yes, you can surround yourself around people that don't look like you and are different and have a different perspective, but you also have to educate yourself, right? You have to read books and watch videos and really expose yourself to other cultures and other ways of thinking so that you can make decisions that are inclusive. And you don't every time have to run to someone. I mean, that's kind of a cop-out, if you will, for a leader anyway. I think a leader should constantly be thinking about, how can I get the best out of my team? And the best way to do that is to understand all that team brings into the room, into the situation.
And it's true. I need to study all things. I think high capacity people, they study and they read diversely. Because if you don't know a diverse just way of thinking, then you can't have empathy. So yes, there are movies, there are shows. I was just watching the Bill Gates documentary. I'm not all the way through it, but him and Melinda, his wife, were talking about they're redoing toilets and sewage systems in third world countries because people are dying from it. And he saw the problem and he reached out to the right people. But I loved this one part, because when you said this, where your boss came to you and said how, Melinda's involved going, okay, you might think this works for the village to have this sewage in the toilets this way, but a woman with her child would never go in there. And I'm like, see, the power of two, and the Bible says one can put 1,000 to flight, and 2 10,000, like, that's, I don't know why I'm getting emotional, so weird. That's powerful.
Absolutely.
And we try to be know-it-alls. And then we also try to go, I don't want to think about that because that just makes me sad. I mean, sex trafficking, I don't want to know about it, but I have to because it's in my city.
Absolutely.
And it's not okay for me to go, no, I don't want to be burdened. Well, you're not the person being trafficked.
Absolutely.
I don't know what it is to be looked down upon or discriminated against. But it's not okay for me to just go, well, that really sucks. Like, that's it.
Absolutely.
No, I have to feel it.
Absolutely.
I have to feel it because then it changes when I have dumb teenagers saying dumb things, because I feel like that's what you get at school is that you have names. Even if you're calling somebody a name and it doesn't even fit, you got all these slang and names and it's the fun thing to do. It changes how around the dinner table we go, that will never, like, that's not a little joke or a little word. That is from the pit of hell. That will not happen in our family. And if each family would do that, I mean, everything stems from good marriage, good family, good home. It would start to change these things.
Absolutely. And I think back to, just our church, right? We want to make an impact in the 920, and clearly we're doing that outside the 920. But I think about even employers in our community, and it's when we pour into our employees, when we pour into those that attend church, what happens is they become better individuals, better parents, better spouses, better neighbors, right? And because it's a trickle effect, and it just keeps going. And it's about loving people. Just love people.
Love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's what it's about. It's about loving people regardless of what they look like or do or don't have. It's about just loving people for who they are, and the best way to do that is to serve.
Remember in last week's episode where Jenene said people need to see people that look like themselves. If you are looking for diverse leadership, start with you. Whether it is at Life Church, your job, a parent group, at your kid's school, whatever it is, if you are looking for leaders who look like you, maybe you need to take that first step. If you are already a leader, think about who you can nudge that would add diversity to your organization. But don't just nudge, be ready to mentor and help them feel included from the start. Now let's watch one last segment of this week's conversation as Sonny and Jenene talk all about legacy.
I want to end with this because we talk a lot about legacy in our church. I end my Jesus.Plus.Life book on legacy, and I talk about breaking generational curses. And I think every decade we get a little better. I mean, I go the 60s, just the racism. I mean, the 30s and the 20s, and some of those are in other countries, and then in America, the hot bed of just evil was the 60s and even the 70s. But every decade I feel like, okay, we're getting a little more removed from just the yuck and there was just, we did things that were just unfathomable. But now I feel like, okay, we're further from that. But I think we can't stop changing the legacy. What my grandpa said at the dinner table is different than what my mom said. But what I say is even steps removed of looking down upon others. And so I think it's, if we could all take this, whether we might not be a leader, we might not be in charge of anyone that we can teach diversity and inclusion, but in our own home, if we could go, okay, what am I doing to change the legacy of America and of the world? And I mean, there's immigration issues right now that I go, shut off the news, grandparents and parents, and quit getting riled up about issues that are political but are also about human beings. Just quit getting riled up. And change a legacy, break a generational curse that is in our country and is all over the world, and start in your own home.
Absolutely.
Like I can't I can't lay my head on the pillow at night knowing I said flippant things. And that's, I think, the point that if we all could get to, and I think that's your goal,
Absolutely.
is to have people be aware. So I hope today helped in that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think back to, when you say legacy and generational and things like that, I think what my dream is for my children's children. So I think back to what my grandmother said to me, what my parents said to me about what my purpose in life is, or what I was to move forward and do. There was always this underlining thought, but as a Black woman, you should be mindful of, or as a Black person in this community, you should be aware of that. And so my dream, what I want my legacy to be, is that my children, my great grandchildren, that they just go for, this is my purpose in life, and I'm going after it.
And there's no asterisk.
And there's no be aware of. Like, that's what I want it to be about. It's about going after your God-given purpose, regardless.
It's so good.
Regardless.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to be praying that our city, our dirt, we love it, is a catalyst. It can be that. Absolutely. It doesn't matter where we are. Yeah. We're in kind of a weird area of the country, and there's lots of philosophies and thoughts. I'm just believing and praying that your work and our work and so many in our community is going to change the spiritual soil. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
What are you doing to change the legacy of your family, your city, your country, and beyond? That's an intense thought, but we can do it. We can all start in our own homes. This has been one of my favorite conversations. Such deep, life-giving content that we all needed to hear and learn from. We would love for you to share this with everyone you know. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can still hit that share button to share this conversation now. Keep thinking about who you are surrounding yourself with and who you are including in your circle. It is each one of our responsibility to educate ourselves in other ways of thinking. We are called to love everyone. Jesus with skin on, as Sonny would say. We love spending Wednesdays with you. See you next week at the same time for another cheery conversation.